What is going down, Sourdough Squad? We got a jam-packed show today. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. We got roster cuts to discuss. The San Francisco 49ers are now down to the 80-man roster. We got to talk about that. We had Trent Williams talking about Jason Poe and some of the things that he was talking about. We're gonna look at some film. We got all kinds of good stuff to look at. So get ready. Get set, because we're getting ready to go. Yee! Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, squad? Good to see you all. We already got everyone in the chat. You already see the bread gang out. You already know the vibes. Dropping SDS in the chat if you're rocking with this ginger beard. We got a lot of 49ers football to talk about. Lots of different things to talk about today. Roster moves, expectations for the next preseason game against the Texans. People going on to PUP, NFI lists, all that type of stuff. We're going to get into it. But first of all, got to do a couple shout outs. You already know the vibes. We're shouting out the squad. Look at all the SDS out here cooking. You love to see it. I want to shout out the whole squad. You love to see everyone in here getting after it. It's time to go. That intro goes crazy hard. I know you see it. I know you see it out there. Shout out all the SDS. We're leveling up We're leveling up, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Ginger Williams. We are definitely leveling up. It's a good time to be a part of the SDS right now. It is absolutely a good time to be a part of the SDS. But let's get into some of the roster moves that went down today. Because we had a lot of stuff going on. So the 49ers are starting to get a better idea of what this roster is going to look like as they have went from 85 to 80. We did our roster prediction show yesterday, but this is how it landed. The 49ers released tight end Tanner Hudson, offensive tackle Sam Schluter, linebacker Jeremiah Gemmel, per Nick Wagner of ESPN. The 49ers have also placed Jason Verrett on the PUP list. So Jason Verrett will be able to return after the first 4 weeks of the season. I'm not terribly surprised by either the cuts or the news about Jason Verrett going on to the PUP. I think that makes sense. And I think we were prepared for that. So nothing crazy there. 49ers defensive tackle Collie Davis also finds his way onto, I believe, the NFI list. So because those two players are on injury designation lists, the 49ers only had to release 3. We heard that Austin Mack was released yesterday, who was on my list of roster cuts, but that was in a corresponding move to sign to Sean Gibson, Pro Bowl safety. Going back to my list and projections, I had Jeremiah Gemmel getting released, so that one was correct. I had Justin School getting released in front of Sam Schluter. Same logic, just with Sam Schluter this time around. I also had Troy Fumagalli being released. They released Tanner Hudson instead. So similar logic, but different outcomes. So those are the players that got released today. Everyone else is going to be safe throughout the next roster cut. The next roster cut, that's where the real predictions begin and where it's going to get a little crazy, because the 49ers are going to be going from an 80-man roster to 53. So that's when the roster predictions are going to get spicy and really start to pick up. So that's what it was today. Those were some of the roster moves that we had. We also heard from Kyle Shanahan today. We heard from a couple players as well. Kyle Shanahan spoke to the media, and he had mentioned and kind of detailed the plan for the 49ers, specifically Trey Lance. Trey Lance will be playing against the Texans, and it does sound like Trey Lance will be playing for a full half. It sounds like the 49ers will be treating this game like it is a dress rehearsal, and rightfully so. So we will see Trey Lance for probably a half, along with the rest of the starters as well, is really what it sounds like. So might get to see a little bit of Debo, might get to see some Ayuk. We won't see running back Elijah Mitchell. However, running back Elijah Mitchell is trending towards being available for week 1 against the Bears. So that is a promising sign up until this point. And so that's the anticipation with the Thursday game against the Texans. We will see Trey Lance. Sounds like we're going to see Debo. Sounds like we're going to see Ayuk. Sounds like we're going to see Trent Williams. Sounds like we're going to see the whole gang out there. So that is, I guess, something to look forward to for the 49ers' last preseason game against the Texans. And then guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The season is right around the corner, and you love to see it. We are so close, so close. I do want to throw out a couple shout outs first of all. So this one particularly, shout out my guy James Vega, because yesterday as we were signing off, James Vega hit us with a $20 super chat and we didn't even get to see it. So I wanted to make sure that we shout out James. He said just a little something for all the great content. Shout out James for the super chat. Really do appreciate it. I also too want to shout out one of our own. We got our guy Justin in here. You know, the expert at all things, Jordan Mason. I don't want to get too specific with anything, but Justin's kind of going through it a little bit. So if you guys could send all the good vibes and good energy to our head sourdough scout, it would be greatly appreciated. I got thinking about you, Justin, thinking about your family, thinking about everything that you guys are going through. So again, just send some love to Justin, because Lord knows we all need some good energy here or there. And I know my guy, Justin, could use it as well. We love you, buddy. And hope everything is going to be okay. But appreciate everyone's support. Appreciate everyone who rides with the SDS. My guy doesn't know what the SDS is. The SDS is the Sourdough Squad. We are a vibe. We are a community. And that's how we get down. So absolutely. Moving forward with today's content, I got through some of the tape study so far. We got through the offensive line. We got through watching all this stuff. And then we also had Trent Williams come out today and speak very, very highly of the undrafted free agent, Jason Poe. Jason Poe is turning heads. They're laughing about it today because they said Jason Poe's 6'1", and Trent Williams was like, "Are you sure about that? Are you sure he's 6'1"? He might be more on the 5'11" side of things. 6'1" might be nice. They might be being nice saying that he's 6'1". So, but you had some amazing sound bites to come out today. I figured we could take a look at some of them because I don't know if this could be coming, but there could be a potential where maybe Jason Poe starts pushing for snaps. I don't know, but it could be something that could be headed this way. Um, Jason Poe clearly is playing at a high level. And based on just going from the tape and everything that we saw, I guess against the Vikings, Aaron Banks did not have a great game. At least compared to the way he played against the Packers. I think Aaron Banks played pretty good against the Packers. Um, he did a pretty solid job all the way through. But if you go back and against this game against the Vikings, Aaron Banks did struggle a little bit. Uh, he definitely had some issues with pass blocking. He kind of got put on his butt when he was pulling. And then on the flip side of things, you had guys like Jason Poe come in and play really, really well. So at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if Jason Poe starts pushing Aaron Banks for some snaps. Just to again, they want to see, what the optimal offensive line is going to be. And they might be thinking right now that Jason Poe could be that guy. We're going to find out, but let's listen to some of what Trent Williams was talking about. We'll have some film clips to kind of look at as well, and all that good stuff. But let's take a look and see what we got. Hold on one second.
He's coming along. He's coming along.
And let me know if you guys
He just
can
continues
hear
win
it.
his matchups, and he plays like his hair is on fire. Obviously, there's a lot to this game that he has to learn, but I think everybody's pretty excited with the strides he's made since OTAs.
He's 6'1" and doesn't have a long arm. Well, maybe not. You know better than me. But the whole thing is, a guy with that height and that length arms isn't supposed to be able to block well, but he has. What is it that he's doing that has allowed him to kind of make up for that lack of length?
Well, you said it, the 6'1" or whatever. And he could be 6'3", who knows? Could be 5'11", we don't know. But that naturally gives him leverage. And he's explosive. He's a very quick guy. Even if you get him, he always has a chance to recover, which is, it's not common coming from an offensive guard position. Usually those guys don't have a lot of room to recover when they do have a chance to recover, but you just never really see that type of athleticism coming from the guard position. And I think that's why he's been successful, because he uses his attributes to his strength and what we may see as his weakness.
With Poe.
All right, I want to talk about what Trent just said right there. I was posting film breakdowns before Trent spoke of Jason Poe, and some of the particular clips these were clips that I was posting, really talk about like what
6'3", who knows? Could be
hold
5.
on a second. Really speak to the things that Trent Williams was just talking about, like this particular play. You see Jason Poe kind of get beat. I would consider this a beat. You have the defensive tackle on an outside shade, almost even shaded on the tackle, but he's kind of chilling right there in the B gap. You're going to see a really hard step out to the left for Jason Poe to try to eat up some of that ground because he's on the outside shade. But the defensive tackle shoots the A gap. So you can see when Jason Poe's stepping out, the defensive tackle is stepping in. This right here is where 95% of interior offensive linemen are going to get beat. Just because you're a big guy, you're shooting all your momentum out, and the guy takes an instant step opposite direction, it's really hard to recover. One of the biggest things about being an offensive lineman is an ability to recover. You're not going to win right away all the time. Sometimes you're going to get beat initially. It's about recovery. Can you recover and make it a positive play? So you can see right here, and you get the step from Poe. You can also see just barely he catches the foot of School as well. So you're going to see him kind of slide a little bit. See that foot slide? Like right here in this position, you can see the defensive tackle already has optimum like body positioning. Like this is exactly where the defensive tackle wants to be. He went from outside shoulder to inside shoulder with Poe going to the outside. This is a really hard spot to be for an interior offensive lineman. But Poe is so quick with his feet. He can come back. He instantly shoots his hands and is able to wash out 93 into the rest. This is a really good rep for those things that we talked about, for the things that Trent Williams was talking about. Like, it is really hard to recover from in this scenario when you're moving one way. You can see they're moving opposite direction. So it's really hard to recover as an interior offensive lineman in this scenario. But you can see how quickly Poe reacts, shoots hands, and drives. This is special, man. Like, now I get it. We want to see it against, maybe starting caliber defensive tackles, and rightfully so. But this is what Trent Williams was speaking to. He was speaking to, again, the athletic ability that Poe possesses to be able to move his feet so quickly when this would be a beat by someone else. Like, this would be a beat by pretty much any other guard. It is so hard to recover when you are moving opposite direction. Again, you're trying to get out fast and make sure he doesn't get pressure in the B gap, but he shoots A gap. It's really hard to counter inside and drive out, but Poe does a really, really good job right here. So again, Trent Williams speaking facts out here on Poe. Let's get it back.
Never really see that type of athleticism coming from the guard position, and I think that's why he's been successful, because he uses his attributes to his strength and what we may see as his weakness.
With Poe in his small school background, Mercer Community College, as you say, but what did it take him a second, like, to realize he does belong here, or did he carry himself with a swagger from the start of training camp? But even though he is a small school guy, he felt like he belonged.
I can't speak for him to say whether he felt like he belonged. He always looked like he belonged. The confidence he plays with his, like I said, his attributes, low center of gravity, his natural leverage, and he's stronger than ox, and he's quick as a cat. So having those attributes, to me, I would assume that he belonged. And but it's still a long way to go. It's just first training camp. There's so much that he hasn't seen yet. But he is definitely ahead of the curve. Definitely playing a lot better than anybody could imagine, being where he came from and the type of football he played last year. For him to be, blocking Javon Kinlaw and guys like that, from coming from Mercer. I mean, and I don't know his university or whatever it is, but coming from Mercer, I'm pretty sure he didn't see too many guys that look like 99 or 91 or, those guys. So the fact that he even comes out here and he's able to put his best foot forward every day and continue to get better, I think it says a lot about him.
Said he tries to model himself after you. He called himself like a baby to Trent Williams. How do you feel about that comp? Do you see that a little?
Yeah, I definitely see it in his athleticism, his strength. I've seen it this offseason. seeing his work ethic. You know, he has that what they call that dog in him, stuff you can't teach. And you know, I think if he continues to stay on the track that he's on, you know, I think he's going to be a good player in this league for a long time, a good player for this franchise.
I cannot agree anymore with Trent and what he talked about with Jason Poe. And I think Trent saw it really early in Poe. He saw it in training camp or in OTAs. That's when guess who went and trained with Trent Williams in the offseason? It was Spencer Burford and Jason Poe. So I'm not surprised, really, at the progression that Jason Poe has made. Again, one of the things that we said that I wanted to see in training camp when we showed up is, can Jason Poe block against the Javon Kinlaws and the Eric Armsteads? That's exactly what we said before camp. And when we got to camp, that's exactly what he did. He did just that. So the bar is rising for Jason Poe. We'll see if we actually see him get some snaps. It could very well happen. He could find his way into that starting lineup potentially, maybe, if he keeps playing at a high level. And you know, this is him right here, the doorstop. This is Jason, the doorstop Poe. I mean, might be small, might have a real low center of gravity, but it can stop very tall things from moving forward based on the way the leverage is built. So, I mean, the Jason Poe, man, it feels like he might have a chance to really make this roster. Because you can see right here from Luke, if he doesn't get poached, that you got to keep him on the roster. I don't think you can take that chance anymore. There's going to be a lot of players like that, man. There's going to be a lot of players on this team that are going to get pushed by this rookie class. This rookie, Samuel Womack, already made Darquez Dennard expandable. You have Jordan Mason, Ty Davis Price, really pushing Trey Sermon right now. Now you have Jason Poe really pushing Aaron Banks right now. Like Drake Jackson, thankfully there's a rotation involved with the defensive line, but he's pushing up the rotation. Like this, and we already know Spencer Burford just took the right guard spot. Like it's his now. And it will probably be his right, unless they move Burford to right tackle or they move him around. Burford is going to be a starter on the San Francisco 49ers for at least minimum the next 5 years until his next contract. And then you would assume at that point the 49ers pay him his money and do all that good stuff. But the 49ers, this draft, especially compared to last year's draft where, you know, it was Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, Ambry Thomas, Diamador Lenore, you know, hasn't really proven to be the best class so far. Again, it's a lot of wait and see for that class right now. But this class is pushing last year's class quite a bit. So it's again, you call it a problem. That's a good problem to have. That the young guys coming in are making it really difficult on the guys already on the roster. So the questions again becomes, who is going to get cut? I think we've talked a lot about the running back position. Jordan Mason right now is the highest graded running back in the preseason per PFF. Again, it's PFF, so we take it with a grain of salt, but still fits my narrative. And it is really cool to see Jordan Mason as an undrafted free agent leading the league in PFF grade. So that's pretty cool. But again, what does that mean for guys like Trey Sermon? What does that mean for guys like JaMychal Hasty? TDP definitely looks the part. Jordan Mason looks the part. Trey Sermon struggling. So what's the decision to be made at that point? It's going to be interesting, man. This is going to be one of the most highly anticipated 53-man rosters that I think I've seen since Kyle Shanahan took over with the San Francisco 49ers in 2017. I cannot recall. I mean, you were hunting for players in 2017 and 2018. It was pretty solidified of who was going to be on your roster. 2019, you pretty much knew who was going to be on your roster. They didn't have a whole lot of depth. 2020 was 2020. We know what 2020 was. This year, the 53-man roster cut down, I feel like, has so much anticipation leading up to it because there's going to be some guys that get let go that we're going to be surprised about. We are going to be surprised about. We're going to be like, "Oh snap. They let him go?" Like, so I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Again, roster cut downs are always tough because we always acknowledge the human element of things. You know, these are guys living out their dreams, and you don't ever want to see a guy get cut or do anything like that. And you know that sucks. But it's like this team has an opportunity to put a really good product on the field, and they have a potential to have a lot of youth injected into a veteran laden team. So you got guys at every spot, at every level, arguably at one of the highest levels of their respective positions. But then you start trickling in all this like injection of youth around them, and it makes like this really cool dynamic where you got the top of the game, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Debo, Ayuk, and then you sprinkle in the Jason Poes, the Jordan Masons, the Danny Grays, the TDPs, and the list goes on and on. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Justin says, does them giving Mason media availability bode well for him? I think so, man. We've talked about it. I don't think there's no secret on this channel. If they cut Jordan Mason, they will regret it. I've been emphatic about that for some time now. If they cut Jordan Mason, they will 100% regret it. It will be something that will not be good for them because he will be on an active roster this year. Just they got to decide if it's going to be on theirs or if it's going to be on someone else's. So the fact that you're seeing Jordan Mason speak to the media, I think that's pretty good sign to see. Guys like Diamador Lenore as well speaking to the media. Diamador Lenore has been playing better. Also, we found out from Diamador that, you know, really heard, you know, that he was dealing with the loss of a cousin last year, as well as his brother getting paralyzed. So Diamador is dealing with a whole bunch last year. So feel for that guy, but hopefully he can come back in a good spot and definitely contribute. It feels like he's kind of solidifying himself as being a guy who could definitely contribute to the 49ers this year. So we will see. But it was tough to hear. Shout out James. Hey, I already shouted you out, James. I even pulled up your super chat from yesterday because we missed it there right at the very end. But we shouted you out. Appreciate the super chat, man. You're only 27 minutes late today. Not too bad. Not too bad. As long as you're here, that's all that matters. Uh, but so, and we know, like we talked about, Elijah Mitchell is going to be back for week 1. So you're looking at a jam-packed running back room right now. You're looking at a lot of guys competing for touches in the running back room. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all these final roster cuts break free. But as of right now, I'm really excited for the team that the 49ers have assembled. Again, you know, I think some people are still a little concerned about, Jake Brendel up there up front. I think we're all more comfortable with Spencer Burford at this point. I think Spencer Burford has proven he has the traits and intangibles to be a starting guard. You had Trent Williams call Spencer Burford today a first or second round talent, said they got an absolute steal with Spencer Burford, and I believe it. I believe exactly what he's saying. Spencer Burford is proving to be a steal. You can still tell that Spencer is, he's a rookie. So he's trying to learn the Kyle Shanahan offense. Like, he already has experience at UTSA with outside inside zone. So he's not learning the fundamentals of the zone. He's just learning the fundamentals of Kyle's offense, learning a different language, learning all the different things that come along with playing in a Kyle Shanahan scheme. So once that clicks more, you're going to be able to see Spencer play faster, more sound, even better. And I think once that occurs, we're going to be talking about Spencer Burford as a really good offensive lineman. I've already projected that he's going to be better than what Laken Tomlinson was for us. He has a better skill set already than Laken Tomlinson. And Laken Tomlinson is a Pro Bowl guard, but watching all of Laken Tomlinson snaps this year, looking at Spencer Burford and the ceiling that he has, I don't think it's crazy at all to think that Spencer Burford could be much better than Laken Tomlinson when it's all said and done. Let's see. Can Poe play center? Poe was a center at Mercer. So that's kind of the confusing thing about this whole thing. It's like he hasn't taken any center snaps. You could theoretically think that he could have absolutely been a part of the center competition. Now, I don't know if it really was a competition. It really does feel like 49ers offensive line coach Chris Forster really wanted Jake Brendel to be the starter. So I don't know, but Poe can play center. Poe was a center at Mercer. So maybe it won't be as much of adjustment for Poe. If they did want to put him at center, they just kick him down. He already knows how to play the position. Obviously doesn't have the repetitions with the quarterbacks and doing things like that. So that would put him at a bit of a disadvantage. But the benefit of him playing center is I would kind of liken it to riding a bike, as a guy who played center and guard and switched back and forth between the two. Once you learn how to play center and then you kick out to guard and you go back to it really becomes just, it's not that big of a deal. You can really just pop back and forth. Learning the center position is the hardest part. The fact that he's already played it and had starts at center and has done that at a high level, high level meaning playing at Mercer. They did play against Alabama, and he had a phenomenal game against Alabama. But the fact that he has played center makes me believe that a transition to center would be a really small learning curve, just because he knows how to do it already. The learning curve comes from building the continuity with his quarterback, timing the snap count, getting a feel for the way everyone comes under center. and does all those kinds of things, but that could happen quickly. So I think they really, the way I view it is they have him proving he can be a guard so that he can prove that he can be a backup that can be, because we all know they only typically keep 8 spots on the offensive line. If you're going to be one of those 8 spots, you got to play at least 2 positions. You cannot just play one position and be a backup offensive lineman. You have to be able to play center. You have to be able to play guard if you're an interior guy. And if you're a tackle, you got to be able to play tackle, but you also got to kick down and be able to play guard. So maybe the thinking with Poe is prove that you can make it as a guard, and that will be the utility that we need to justify keeping you on the active roster. Again, he's making it real difficult, because if we look at the 49ers projected offensive line that they're going to be keeping, it's going to be Trent, Banks, Brendel, Burford, Mike Mcglinchey. Mike Mcglinchey is dealing with a bit of a knee concern. So let's talk about Mike Mcglinchey a little bit, because we know they're going to keep Colton McKivitz. Colton McKivitz is the swing tackle. You would think they're going to keep not Mike Brunskill, Dan Brunskill. He's making about $2.5 million this year. It's the most he's ever made with the 49ers. So you would imagine they're going to be keeping Brunskill. So that's 7 guys right there. They typically keep 8. But what's kind of the situation with Mcglinchey? Now, I watched this all kind of play down at training camp. Mike Mcglinchey, it was that day that I was tweeting about Mike Mcglinchey like winning some reps against Nick Bosa, and then Nick Bosa came back and got Mcglinchey pretty good. But I could see Mcglinchey like really, like he was grabbing at his knee, he was moving his leg. Like when you're hurt, you like you kind of test it out and you kind of move it, and you could tell it was bothering him. Then he took himself out of practice, and we haven't seen him since that moment. So, and that's when we've got the reports that Mike Mcglinchey is dealing with some knee stiffness, or knee irritation. So I don't know what that means for Mike. I don't foresee Mike going on short-term IR or PUP or anything like that. He has to make the roster, because if they put him on IR before the roster is cut, he would be on IR for the entire year, and that's not going to work. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage this. Because you could maybe think that they could put Mcglinchey on short-term IR for 3 games, but he has to make the roster first. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Mike continues to progress. Again, I thought he looked good at training camp. You could just tell he was still dealing with some knee irritation and stuff like that. So we'll see. But that 8th spot, is it going to be Jalen Moore? Would we forget about Jalen Moore? Is Jalen Moore going to be that guy? Or can Jason Poe, undrafted free agent, take Jalen Moore's potential roster spot? So it's going to be fascinating. I'm really looking forward to it, because in the sense of the anticipation, who's making the roster, who's going to get cut, and who's going to get picked up by another team. You look at the safety position. Now you got Tashawn Gibson in the mix. Well, does that mean someone's not safe? Does that mean Tarvarius Moore maybe isn't safe for making the roster? I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting. Eric saying Poe over Moore at this point. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't been ultra high on Jalen Moore. I liked him in training camp. I thought he did really well in training camp. I thought he looked good in preseason, and I thought he looked pretty good against the Colts. Decent, not great, but decent. But then when they moved him to right tackle against the Jags, not good. When he played right tackle against the Rams, not good. And then we didn't even see him week 18. Then I think they tried to move him to like guard, and I said that's a terrible idea. Don't move Jalen Moore to guard. He's not a guard, and you're not going to get better. You're not going to get anything better from Jalen Moore by moving him to the interior. Keep him at tackle. So far, Jalen Moore has only been a tackle. But if you have guys that are on the roster like Colton McKivitz and Dan Brunskill, both of those guys can play tackle. But we know Dan Brunskill, he can play every position on the offensive line. And then you got Poe, who can play center guard. You got McKivitz, who can play every both tackle spots and both guard spots. It could be that. That could be the main three backups right now heading into week 1. I see a world that exists where it's Colton McKivitz, Jason Poe, and Daniel Brunskill. So we'll see, man. We will see how it all plays out. It's going to be crazy. When the ultimate final roster cuts come down, it's going to be crazy. It is going to be crazy. Larry Kruger says Poe has Pro Bowl potential. Poe's built the right way. Like he is again. I talk about speed on the interior a lot. I thought one of my personal best attributes as an offensive lineman, and again, I wasn't that great of an offensive lineman, but I felt like my best attribute was my first step quickness and speed and those types of things. Agility, ability to move side to side. Jason Poe has that ability. And when you have the ability to move, the foot quickness, but you're able to maintain a strong base and not get pushed around, then that makes you really good. And that is one of Poe's best attributes is his speed. And you could see when he pulls, he's going to rock you. Again, he leveled, I think it was Janoris Robinson, who's a former 4th-round pick, 6'5", like 260. Just absolutely demolished him. Pulling against the Vikings. So I don't know, man. Poe could push for reps here. He could put, not only is he pushing for a potential roster spot, he could be pushing for starting reps. So ultimately, you want the best guys on the field at the end of the day. Roster, where you were drafted shouldn't dictate where or like how you play, but you never know, man. You never know what they decide internally. But it sounds like Poe's got a lot of people, including this Trent Williams, on his side. We'll see. Justin says Niners have to have more success with undrafted free agents than anyone else. I know you guys remember how hyped we were with this undrafted free agent class. Like this undrafted free agent class was sick. And we're starting to see that really, really show. Like Quantrez Knight, Taylor Hawkins, of course, Jason Poe, Jordan Mason, Donovan West has looked good in spots. But again, like they gave Donovan West, I think, the most money out of all the undrafted free agents, but Jason Poe is the one who's rising. So it's crazy to see. It's fun. It's fun development. It definitely is. Lewis says O-line seems super suspect. Trey will be running for his life. We failed him with the O-line. That's going to be out there. clearly they really are confident in Jake Brendel. I haven't seen enough of Jake Brendel to feel ultra confident or unconfident. So again, for me, Brendel is still a work in progress. Just from the sense, I need to see more reps. Need to see it kind of come to fruition a little bit more. I saw good things against the Packers, but also the Packers' defensive line was really not very good. If we're being brutally honest, the Packers' defensive line was not good. The Vikings' defensive line, even the Vikings' backups, were a lot better than what the Packers were throwing out there. So we got to see against the Texans. I think the Texans is going to be the next kind of litmus test for what this offensive line looks like, and who's getting the reps. Do we see like Banks and Poe switch off like every other series or every 2 series? Because if they do, that's an indication that, again, they're in a battle to see who's going to win that spot. We already know Poe started with the 3s, he bumped up to the 2s, and if he starts clawing at the 1s, maybe he gets a spot. But I also do know they desperately want Aaron Banks to be successful. So you kind of have to balance, like, well, do we ruin Aaron Banks's potential confidence by benching him before week 1, or do we give Banks the opportunity to go out there and prove it first, then we make the decision? Those are the things that we'll have to just watch and play out ultimately as everything progresses. Peter says, "Dang, Brad, with all this O-line talk, seems like the line isn't going to be as big of a question mark as we thought early in camp." I don't think it will be because, again, we didn't anticipate Burford was going to be playing right guard, but Burford looks great at right guard. But we still have some questions with Mike's availability and his health and when he'll be back. So still kind of got some questions with right tackle. Obviously, we know Colton McKivitz would step in that regard. Brendel Banks, TBD still. So there are still some questions. But hopefully against the Texans, we'll definitely get a little bit better idea. I think Poe would be a great center for sure. Does Purdy's ascension put even more pressure on the Jimmy situation? Don't think they'll convince a team they'll carry 4 quarterbacks. Jimmy's not. I think everyone in the NFL understands that Jimmy is not going to be on this roster next year. So they're just gonna. There's no way they're keeping 4, and there's no way. I really don't believe Jimmy's gonna be on the roster. But hey, we'll see how it all goes. Do you think they try to trade any of these guys, like Moore, Poe, West, or Nick, Zakel? I would assume other new players who are raw but show promise if they don't feel they can hide them on the practice squad. I could see Jalen Moore potentially being a trade candidate. Again, he's got tape out there. It's not the best tape, but he's got some tape out there. 5th round draft pick, potentially, maybe. But I don't know if anyone's biting on that, particularly Poe. I wouldn't want to trade, especially when you have a guy like Trent Williams so clearly in your corner. Wouldn't want to do that. So Poe seems like the Jordan Mason of the O-line room. It's like, clearly feel like Jordan Mason needs to be on this roster, but as we continue to move through and like get closer to cut down, kind of feels like Poe also needs to be on the roster as well. And I don't know if you're going to sneak him around to the practice squad if that actually goes down. So Going to be interesting, but I do think there could be some potentials for guys to get traded. It's just who's going to be that guy that gets traded. I don't know. I don't know. Don't know who it would be at this point again. Jonas Griffith was a guy who got traded last year to the Denver Broncos. I was pretty bummed about that because Jonas Griffith was a really good player and proved to be a really good player for the Broncos last year. But I can imagine there are going to be other situations like that. So we'll see. Ambry Thomas has been dealing with a little bit of an injury, so he's been having a hard time getting on the field. It's going to be interesting to see how they view him and all that good stuff. Jordan says, do you think Burford can potentially play tackle down the line? He has the length and size and athleticism. Yeah, that's what I thought Burford was. I thought Burford was, the eventual replacement for Mike Mcglinchey, who could slide into right tackle if they don't sign Mike Mcglinchey to an extension. That's kind of what it felt like, kind of like Aaron Banks. They drafted Aaron Banks a year before Laken Tomlinson was going to be out the door. So it kind of felt like that same setup, but I really like him at guard right now. And I don't know. He can play tackle, but I really like him. I really like him at guard. Is it true that Poe is outperforming Banks? I mean, if you just go to watch the Vikings game, yes, Poe played better than Banks. Banks had a rough game against the Vikings, and I think that might be a little concerning internally because Banks had a good game against the Packers, but again, the offensive line as a whole struggled during joint practices. I was really far. I was on they were always practiced on the second field. So it was really hard to get a good look on the interior offensive line. So I couldn't really, all I could see is that they weren't running the ball well and they weren't pass protecting well. Whether that was interior, from the edges, it was a little bit of everything. So during joint practices, the offensive line struggled quite a bit, and could Banks be at the center of that potentially? And then you go into the game, and Banks continued to struggle. Poe wasn't perfect. He had a blown assignment on a pull. He was kind of pulling up into the hole. He had his eyes on the safety. Should have been looking inside towards the linebacker. Linebacker just went underneath them, made a tackle. But that was really the only egregious play Poe had. I could count probably 3 to 4, maybe even 5 snaps from Banks where you're like, ooh, that wasn't a really good rep. Whether it was defensive tackle kind of swimming him, getting by him. He didn't have the greatest pull. So Banks definitely had a rougher day at the office than Poe did with the Vikings. So I don't know if that's enough for them to be like, well, maybe we give Poe some run. But it could. It absolutely could. And Poe is definitely, his stock is rising. Luke says Banks is playing this year. Book it. Trent has been high on Banks too. He's been here longer. Trent also said Poe has a long way to go, so I don't think Poe's ready to take Banks' job now. And I agree with this in a sense. I don't think he's ready to take it, but I think he's ready to kind of poke at it. I think, again, Banks didn't have a great game against the Vikings. They're going to give every opportunity to Banks. I don't think you want to just make a sweeping decision right now, but it feels like Poe is poking. Poe's poking. He's knocking at the door. He's like I could play here. I could. Don't know if he's ready yet, but I kind of agree. They're going to give every opportunity to Banks to lose the job, if that makes sense. I don't think it would make sense, based on taking him in the second round to do it before week 1. Like, I think you have to start Banks. You have to give Banks an opportunity. You have to allow him to lose the job. Like, you can't just go into week 1 unless it's that apparent. But I think you have to give it to Banks. I think you have to allow him to lose the job or win the job. Either one, either way you want to look at it. But we'll see. But I do believe Poe was poking. Poe was poking him. He's like, come on. So we'll see what ultimately happens. But like I said, I do think it is Banks who gets the first go. And then we'll see what happens after that. I think we're pretty solidified on the wide receivers. I don't think there's too much questions there. I feel pretty confident that Malik Turner is going to be the 6th wide receiver. And we know who the other 5 are. Croft, I think, is pushing for a tight end spot. I feel like they like Warner enough. Even though he's been hurt, I feel like Warner has proven that he's competent and capable. So I think the battle's kind of between Croft and Dwelly. So we'll see what happens there. Defensive tackle wise, I think we've seen enough from Javon Kinlaw. I think Hassan Ridgeway is going to make it. Kevin Givens obviously going to make it. Maybe Akeem Spence makes it. We'll see about that. I felt like Barrett has shown promise, but I think Barrett might just be too small and could wind up on the practice squad. I feel like most of the defensive ends are going to make it. I think they're going to have a tough decision between guys like Kamoko Toure and Jordan Willis. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep all of them. So we'll see. I'll have to do my roster projection for the 53-man to see what that looks like at the defensive end spot. But they got a lot of good defensive ends. So that's going to be interesting. Linebacker, I think that's pretty solidified. Oren Burks is for sure going to be the 4th. If they keep 5, it's going to be DFF. Cornerback spot is going to be interesting. They played a lot of Ken Crawley recently. So it's going to be interesting if they keep Ken Crawley in place of someone else. We'll find out that in that regard. And then again, I think the safety becomes interesting now with Tashawn Gibson entering the fold. So we'll see, man. We'll see. It's going to be a fun roster cut down in the sense of there's going to be a whole lot that goes down. I think there's going to be some surprises. I think there's going to be some things that we're like, oh, we did not expect that. And I think it's going to make for quite the reaction when it's all said and done. So definitely looking forward to that. And it's crazy that the 49ers are already on to the Texans. They play the Texans on Thursday. And then that's it for the preseason. Preseason is over after Thursday. And then we get ready for the regular season, start to focus on the week 1 matchup against the Bears. But I still think there's plenty to watch for, especially with the starters showing up for the first half against the Texans. There's still some battles to be had, and we've spent a lot of time today talking about the offensive line. We're going to see, man. Maybe Brunskill comes back. I don't know. Doesn't seem like it. I don't think they gave – I'd have to go back and look. I don't know if I saw any Brunskill updates, but I have to go back and check. It doesn't seem like Brunskill will play against the Texans, so we will see. If you guys have any other couple questions before we shut it down, feel free to get them in here. If you guys are in the Bay Area or wherever you are, I will be on 95.7 The Game at 7:30 this evening. So if you want to tap in and tune in, I'll be on 95.7. So that will be cool. Be able to talk more 49ers football and all that good stuff. You think Mason could fill the role as a third down back? Yes, 100%. He's a really good pass catcher. I don't think people, unless you've been to training camp, you haven't seen his ability to catch yet. It's arguably one of his best attributes is his hands. He has really good hands. He's a really good route runner too. So I do think Jordan Mason could absolutely be that guy. So that's why he's an extremely intriguing prospect. Extremely intriguing prospect. Which four safeties make the 53-man roster? To me, it feels like Jimmy Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, George Odom. The fourth one becomes interesting because are they not as high on Tarvarius Moore? With the addition of Tashawn Gibson, is the Tashawn Gibson signing an indication of Jimmy Ward's health? I don't know. Gonna be interesting. Does Jeff Wilson go? I think they like Jeff Wilson. So I feel like Jeff Wilson's kind of got a spot unless he is potentially floated in a trade. But I don't know. Feels like Jeff is gonna make it. Do I think Tariq Castro Fields will make the team? I don't think he'll make the team. He would definitely be a good practice squad candidate. But I don't. I think Samuel Womack has clearly solidified himself, but I think Diamador has had a better end of training camp and this preseason. They're not going to let go Ambry Thomas. Dante Johnson is still around. So I think when it comes to the numbers, and again, Jason Verrett wants a PUP. I don't know if Tariq makes it. I think Hasty's good, but I really think Jordan Mason has a ton of potential. I think Hasty's good for what he is right now as a third down back, special teamer, a guy who can catch out of the backfield. But I really think Jordan Mason has RB1 upside, and I got to bet on upside. I'm always going to bet on the upside because if you hit on the upside, then you're going to reap the benefits of that. So that's what I'm looking for. Lewis said, will the whole starting unit play the half with Lance? That's what it sounds like. That's definitely what it sounds like. Matthew says, heck yeah, Mason needs to make the roster 100%. I agree. Luke says, Mason over Hasty. Hasty disappears on the regular season. Don't know why, but he doesn't run well, drops passes, fumbles the ball, also gets injured. He's definitely had a rough go for sure. Justin says, what do you think Jordan Mason's vision could be like with another year in the system? Again, Jordan Mason could be he could be really good. Like, I don't want to say it because it's ultra premature, but like eventually Jordan Mason has, to me, the potential to like really push like even Elijah Mitchell for snaps and carries. Like again, you see it in guys, like you can see the guys, they talk about, oh, do they have it? Jordan Mason looks like the guy. He just has it. Like he just has a natural ability to run the football. His vision, his cutting, the power. He's a good. It's not like it's limited to in between the tackles. He can catch passes. Like, so I don't know, man. You give Jordan Mason another year, he could be really nice. Especially if you get an improved offensive line, all that type of stuff. So we'll see, man. We will see. Yes, Thursday's game will be a rehearsal. It's basically the primer before the season. And then they're going to get like a week and a half off until September 11th, week 1 against the Bears. Allow people to get healthy, get rested, get their legs under them for a long 17-game season that ends in January against the Cardinals, week 18. So long year ahead, but we are so close to having 49ers football in front of us. Again, one more preseason game on Thursday to wrap things up, and then we gear up for week 1, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, a lot of stuff to watch for. We'll do a little bit more of an episode probably tomorrow or the next day about kind of what to keep an eye out on. We'll highlight specific battles, things like that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So appreciate everyone for tapping in. Again, I'll be on 95.7 The Game at 7:30 tonight. If you want to tune in for more 49ers content, you already know the vibes. I'm going to be out of here tonight. You already know. Smash that like button on your way out. Appreciate all the squad vibing with me today, vibing with me all week. Again, football is right around the real football. We're in the middle of football, but real football is right around the corner, and looking forward to it. Looking real excited for what is to come with the San Francisco 49ers season. So appreciate you guys.